Hello, Camden Coblentz here. So it's late October and Halloween is coming up soon. Now, I never celebrated Halloween as a kid, nor do I now. But it is something that does have a lot of focus around this time, and there's quite a lot of entertainment that seems to have that theme. One such movie I can imagine people watching around this time is Coraline, even if it isn't directly connected to the holiday. It's definitely a movie that gives me a lot to think about. So the movie begins with our young protagonist, Coraline Jones, and her parents moving to an area known as the Pink Palace Apartments. Coraline isn't very impressed with her new situation. The atmosphere is gloomy, her neighbors eccentric, and her parents are extremely busy writing for a gardening catalog, which keeps them from settling in faster. Her new home is old and strange as well. Stranger still, the grandson of the landlord, Wybie, has given her a doll with buttons for eyes that looks exactly like her. While exploring the house to pass the time, she discovers a small door behind the wallpaper. When unlocked, it has seemingly only bricks behind it. However, that night, she finds that the door leads elsewhere. Once through, she discovers what appears to be the same house and a person who looks almost exactly like her mother. But one thing is very different, in that she has buttons for eyes. But she's in a much better mood. She tells Coraline that she's her other mother, and tells her to get her other father, who also has buttons for eyes. Coraline's supposed other mother fixes a great feast, and tells her that everyone has another mother and other father, and that they have been waiting for her. Coraline is glad that they actually are seeming to care about her, but she feels the need to go back home to bed. But her supposed other parents lead her to a much better bedroom in their house. Coraline soon falls asleep. But when she wakes up the next morning, she's back in her home, as if it was all a dream. That day, Coraline is still unhappy with the imperfections at home. She wants to head back through the mysterious door, but it's bricked up again. But that night, it's open again. She spends more time in the other world, which mirrors her neighborhood. Everyone there has button eyes, and everything appears to be better. But she ends up back at home again when she wakes up. When her parents are busy elsewhere and she's left alone, she opens the door and finds it to be open, confirming that she wasn't dreaming before. After having more fun, her supposedly other parents tell her she could stay forever if she wanted to. But she'd have to do one thing first. Coraline learns the shocking truth that they intend to sew buttons in her eyes, as they say it's the only way she could stay. She freaks out and pretends to be tired to get away from them, and soon falls asleep in her other bed. But when she wakes up, she's still in the other world this time. Unable to escape to the real world, she refuses to see her supposed other mother as her mother. Furious, her body morphs into a more monstrous design and traps Coraline behind a wall in a dark room. In what could be debated as the most unsettling scene in the movie, it's revealed that the room contains 3 ghost children who are the other mother's victims. They refer to her as the Beldam, and explain that she used dolls to spy on them and saw that they were unhappy. The Beldam lured them in with the promise of a better life. They still longed for more and let her sew buttons in their eyes. Then she consumed their lives. This scene fully displays the truth of what the Beldam's true intentions were. It also turns out that one of the ghosts was the twin sister of the landlord. Taking an obvious fantasy direction, they tell Coraline that they can be freed if she finds their eyes. She is then freed by the other Wybie and escapes back home, only to discover that the Beldam has captured her real parents. Along with the help of an intelligent stray cat that can communicate with her in the other world, and eventually the real Wybie, Coraline is able to outsmart the Beldam, who is now in her true form, rescue her parents and the children's eyes, escape, and trap the Beldam for good. Coraline as a movie is certainly thrilling, with really clever build-up that leads to an intense climax. What's interesting is that not everything is fully explained, which gives the movie some mystery. It features some of the best stop-motion animation ever, as well as a very unique musical score. However, there are 2 major problems I have with the movie. The first is the theater scene. Those who have seen the movie know exactly what I'm talking about. It was just awkward and very out of place and something to mostly skip over. The second major problem I have with the movie is the scene when the parents are freed. It could have been a very heartfelt scene of the 3 of them bonding closer together, kind of like how Inside Out had a touching scene of family bonding. Obviously, this movie was released 6 years before. But instead of that, we got her parents having no recollection of what just happened, not realizing that their daughter saved their lives. From their perspective, they just arrived back home, which is disappointing. Their writing is finished, but they still don't seem to have the greatest family relationship, even though they have lightened up a bit. Now for the spiritual aspects. In this life, we all experience disappointments and difficulties. Deep down, we all long for happiness and peace. Unfortunately, the devil will try to take advantage of anyone who is unhappy or dealing with hard situations. He'll plan to use anything to keep as many as he can from the truth. Sometimes it can be things that are clearly sinful, with examples such as pornography, taking advantage of others and making their lives worse, or simply things that could be fed into our minds that weigh us down from being better people. But it can also be much more subtle. Satan is a master of lies and false promises. With that kind of influence, it's clear that the world we live in has messages that promise how to live a perfect life. Things like being rich and famous, finding the perfect marriage, and living life for yourself, which can easily harm others, are examples of what society claims are the key to happiness. But much like the Beldam's world in Coraline, it is all a trap. Satan will use whatever he can to deceive us and keep us from true peace and true salvation. We are all broken people, and we cannot be good on our own. There are things I have done that I am ashamed of. The sins that we all have committed have led to a debt that we cannot pay. We don't deserve mercy, and therefore can't earn our way to heaven. But because God sent His Son, Jesus, to pay for the sins of humanity, we have a chance to be redeemed. It comes down to the most crucial choice we have to make. We can choose to believe in God and trust Jesus as our Savior and be born again. But if we choose to reject His sacrifice, we unfortunately reject His mercy. Satan doesn't want us to accept the message of the gospel, so he'll try to distract us, deceive us, and drive us into disbelief. But for the lives who haven't chosen to be born again, sadly, one day it will be too late. Coraline was able to escape the other world before it was too late. Christ has opened a path to escape from eternity in hell, so I encourage you to take that step to abide in Him who provides the only way to true peace. As you can see, Coraline was definitely something that got me thinking about connections to my Christian life. Despite all the danger that takes place in the story, it isn't without hope. It's a movie I definitely enjoyed, but even if it's advertised as a family movie, you should really think twice before showing this to kids. It may be rated PG, but it's way too scary and disturbing for little kids. In fact, this movie's even managed to creep out some adults. I actually didn't see it until a few years back for the first time. But it certainly has gained quite a fan base. So with Halloween coming up, which has very questionable celebrated elements, I want to remind you that even among the hardships of life and the danger that sin can do to us, there can be hope for us if we choose to run to Jesus to let Him set us free from eternal darkness. Thank you all for listening. If you like what you hear, I encourage you to subscribe, and until then, see you later.